Hi, this is episode 4 of the Ripples podcast. I'm Greg.
I am Michael, and we are joined today by another guest, Joe. Joe Tannenbaum. Do you wanna introduce yourself to everyone, Joe?
Sure. My name is Joe Tannenbaum. I'm a software engineer at a company called Digital Extremes. We're a gaming company, and I am not a gamer, so that's an interesting match. But it's a fun time, and I think probably people know me as the guy that just kind of fools around with Laravel prompts and does stuff in the terminal.
Fools around is a very generous way of putting the crazy things that you're doing. What is it that I called you? Some kind of mad scientist or some
Um, CLI
maniac?
monster,
Pretty
I
sure
think, is what
CLI
came out of
monster.
your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you are on that. So this is how you came on my radar, and I'm sure I'd seen your name about the place before, but this is kind of what put you on my radar of like I'm actually following this person was like right after Laracon AU last year when Jess had must have been before that because it was Laracon US that Jess did the announcement for prompts, and it was probably not not very long after, probably late July, early August, that I started seeing these crazy things that you were doing. And the first thing was like, was it reinventing like the display of a car or something like that you did?
No, one of the earlier things was, I think one of the first, I was looking back at this timeline trying to remember what had been going on. And I think the first thing was I recreated like a data table in the terminal. So you could search it and sort it. And it was sort of an interactive, searchable data table in the terminal because I was just trying to get a feel for how prompts worked and what the rhythm of it was and how it was rendering to the terminal. And so that felt like something simple enough to do. And because of the way that Jess put it together, it really ended up being pretty fast once I got the hang of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the
It's
first thing I saw was the Norton Commander. That blew my mind. I'm just like, what on earth? So the first question on that one was
So I've been around for a minute. I'm not, so young, but people kept when I was publishing these things to Twitter, people kept saying, "I'm waiting for Norton Commander. I'm waiting for Norton Commander," and I was like, "Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I know what that is exactly." So I looked up some YouTube videos and I was, reading some articles, and I kind of repieced together what I could tell that it was and put together a little sort of workable demo of that. Just as I kept looking for different challenges, I was just trying to like up the skill set, up the techniques with every challenge. That was really the goal. And a goal for nothing. It was just for fun. I wasn't. There's no there's no end game in terms of. It's not super useful all the time. I mean, it's fun to build these things, but I just was having fun. I wanted to have fun coding, and that's why this came about.
yeah, cool. So yeah, the skill set things. I mean, you may not ever need to use Norton Commander because we've kind of moved past that as a technology community, I guess. But
Or
yeah,
moving
you
back
never
into
real.
it. It's possible,
But you never really know where some of that skill might come out. It's also a flashy way. I mean, I think the next one that I saw, the next one that kind of resonated a bit with me was putting your resume up as a shell application.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, it's a really interesting way to create cut through, particularly with technical people. Like, I mean, I'm a hiring manager all the time, and if somebody submitted a CV to me, like if someone emailed me and said my CV is at SSH URL, that
Totally.
would certainly get my attention.
Yeah. I really was I was putting these things up and I wanted people to play with them, but I didn't want them to have to download it and figure it out terminal by terminal. And I wanted what was essentially a browser, but I didn't really know how to connect those two pieces easily. And I'm a huge fan of I don't know if you guys know Charm CLI, charm.sh. They're a Go library that do astounding things in the terminal, and it's an open source company. And they had this thing called Wish. I think it's called Wish, and it's an easy way to set up on your server an SSH server, so like it can live independently on your server. And so I figured out how to set that up, and I was like, oh, I can just have people play with this directly on my server. Resource wise, PHP was getting a little hungry. I had to bump up the server size after people got a little antsy after going staging in, but yeah, it was a fun way to share it ultimately, and it made me happy to sort of plug and play that along the way.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So, I know that we've been saying that you're the prompts guy. Did you want to go and is that the way that you want to be known, or do you want to talk a little bit more about
No,
some of the other things that you're?
It's fine for now. It's fine for now. I've always been sort of like in the terminal. I used to always create these little utility scripts. I was a freelancer for a long time, and all of these terminal scripts that I was creating, I had sort of like a central Laravel 0 utility app on my computer, and it would help me with workflows or, connecting client stuff. And it was a useful way for me to get things done very quickly and efficiently. And then I started building out a sort of a version of prompts for myself, because I don't know if you know this library called Clack. It's a Node library built by Nate Moore, who I think is the Astro co-creator. And I just wanted that experience. I wanted something a little more interactive for the PHP CLI experience. And so I started rebuilding that library exactly in PHP. I was like, okay, let's just, as a challenge, recreate Clack as PHP. So I started rebuilding Clack exactly in PHP, like literally verbatim, just style-wise, to see how far I could push it and what could happen in that realm. And at the time I had like 100 followers on Twitter. I didn't have much. It was, but I was like, let's just share progress along the way. Let's just tweet out what I'm doing and see if anybody's into it. And so I'm tweeting along and people are like, hey, this is cool. Like, just like little things here and there. I went on this trip, and it was an international trip, and I came back and we were all jet lagged, and my son didn't know what time it was. And so he was waking up at 4 a.m, like over and over, thinking it was the start to the day. So I wake up at 4 a.m. for like the third day in the row, and I look at my phone and it said, Taylor Otwell has direct messaged you. And I was like, no, I'm just not awake. I don't know what's going on. Like, I literally put the phone down. I was like, phone's glitching. Don't know what that is. Went and dealt with my son and woke up with him. And a couple hours later, I looked at my phone again, and he had messaged me and he was like, hey man, this is awesome what you're doing. Coincidentally, we're kind of doing the same thing over here. Like we're building out a similar library. Do you want to see it for a second? And I was like, yeah. And I'm here with like 100 followers. I was like, how does he even know how did he clock this? I don't even know how he came about this. And so he showed me like prompts as it was then. This was like a year ago. And my mind was like, I was like, this is so much better than what I'm building, like by a mile. And so then when it got debuted at Laracon US, I was like, it's just incredible. Like, Jess did an astounding job. And the experiment started because I wanted to PR something into prompts. And so I had to see how it worked. And Jess has really built like this beautiful little simple machine in there that just allows you to say like, okay, you have like a state class and you have a renderer class, and like they're going to work together, and it's just, we're going to hide all of the like hard bits. Cause I had already built this with the Clack thing, but I didn't do it as well as she did. She abstracted it a lot better. And so I was like, okay, you can go beyond these little components and actually take over the whole thing and just start rendering full applications like so easily. And I just started doing that. And it was, I don't know, I just was in a rut with freelancing. I was a freelancer at the time, and I wanted to have fun coding. That's really what it was. And then people seemed to like it, and, they were sharing it, and that's how we got to where we are today. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just about fun. I just really wanted to have fun. And I was. And my wife was like, you're doing, actually, I think Aaron Francis, you can't have a podcast without mentioning Aaron Francis at some point, but
not this podcast.
I think legally that's how it works. I'm pretty sure. She said, you're just like on the computer after you're on the computer all day. And I was like, well, my fun looks like my work. Like the both things, look like the same thing from the outside. And so, yeah, but I do other things, but I'm happy to be the prompts guy for right now. It's okay. I'm satisfied in that role.
Yeah.
that is kind of the crux of like the ripple and putting yourself out there, is that you don't know, like, that this experiment that you were doing with the terminal is the thing that's going to make you well known in the community, that's going to get, someone like Taylor to reach out to you, that it's going to be the thing that you become known for. And
Right.
unless you throw it out there, you have no idea. And the stuff that you were doing, whilst it was kind of like tangential or running in parallel to the stuff that Laravel was building, the stuff that you've done as a result and subsequent to that is far and away, like, the stuff that we have in the terminal from prompts is amazing. We've got the selects and the type aheads and like all the multi stuff and all of that. But the things that you have built are far and away, like, way beyond the scope of, like, I'm like, yeah, we've got all this, the stuff that we had before, but better. And now the stuff that you've done is just like, how did we even get to a point where we're doing this stuff in the terminal with PHP?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. I kept wanting to stretch it further and further, and I kept wanting to say, okay, how do we push the throttle, and how do we do this in a way that we haven't really done it before, in terms of, these things are tedious when you're building these things out. You're just like manipulating strings, and so, like, it's not for everybody. It's not fun for everybody, but it scratches an itch for me for some reason. It does. It is fun for me. And so, yeah, I just kept wanting to push the throttle. And it was always funny because, especially in the latter half of doing all these experiments, I would set out to say, okay, I want to learn how to, like, say, animate something. And so that part generally went pretty quickly, but it was always something else that I was like, oh, this is hard. And I didn't realize this part would be the hard part. And so, okay, we'll focus on that. I mean, there were times I lost hours and hours of my of my night just trying to figure out how to position a character correctly in the flow of an animation. And then I would start folding in, like React PHP to try to do some async stuff. And, that was an interesting experiment. And, we have a good ecosystem, and it certainly hits its limitations. And there were some things that I gave up on because I said, well, maybe this just isn't PHP's job, or maybe I don't have the brain capacity for this right now. But we've grown a lot. We're in a good place, PHP wise.
Yeah, it's definitely a very much an all in. Like, it does a lot more than it did when I started with it 19 years ago, 18 years ago. Like, the things that we can do now and the ease with which we can build and then deploy them somewhere is, it was beyond my wildest expectations back then. Like, when I started programming, I didn't even know what a framework was. And it was only sort of 2 or 3, maybe 5 or 6 actually years into that journey that I kind of stumbled upon Symfony. And I'm like, going to everyone, did you know that there's these things called frameworks, and that, like, they do all of this busy work for you?
It's so much
like,
easier.
Yeah. And then, but then I could never, like, I think this was Symfony, late Symfony 2, early Symfony 3, and I just couldn't get my head around, like, how to use it, and all the YAML and stuff that was in there at the time. And that was around when I found Laravel, and I was like, this all just makes sense. Like, it works, it does this stuff, it gets out of the way. And this was like pre-composer Laravel. This was bundles and whatever else. And it was just mind-boggling, the amount of stuff that you could do, the amount of stuff that you could ship without actually having to do any of it yourself. And like, it just, Taylor and the team are always pushing that envelope. They're always looking for, the next thing. And so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with this year with, all of the plans to grow the team, to bring in, the head of engineering, which I hear that they've placed that role now.
Yeah, I heard that
so,
too.
That's happened. There's, the other people, infrastructure people. So it's interesting to see how the business itself is growing, and then to see, who ends up working there, because no doubt it's going to be some familiar names and familiar faces that end up taking some of those early roles, and just to see the kind of work that they're going to do to continue to push the envelope and to continue to ship incredible things into the hands of, the everyday developers as we are.
I think the crazy thing for me on the Laravel, I came to Laravel via Cake PHP. So I was a Laravel 4 convert. So I think that was the first one where they dropped bundles and replaced them with components. And I remember being blown away by queues and blown away by the fact that it even had a console solution. And I probably would have been happy if the world stopped at Laravel 4. Like, to me, that felt like it was enough.
Yeah,
they couldn't
that was the
possibly
top of the
put
mountain.
more.
Yeah.
They couldn't possibly put more batteries into this thing. But every year, like without fail, there's just something new that's coming. They're now getting to the point where they're sort of going back and making things that did exist even more incredible. So Prompts is a really great example of that, right? Like, so, I mean, the wrapping around the Symfony console was fine, but Prompts sort of just pushes that one step further. But yeah, it's amazing to just see how much Laravel does for you, then gets out of the way, and then you can just focus on actually solving like properly hard problems, because your brain isn't filled up with how do I deal with meaningless drudgery. Like, I don't want to be figuring out how to handle queues and stuff. Just no.
Yeah, exactly. I think if I remember correctly, I came from Code Igniter. I think that was the thing I jumped off of and into Laravel. And it was, I remember I was working at this CLE company, and this guy was like, Code Igniter's okay, but like, have you seen Laravel? And I was like, I don't know what that is. And he goes, look at these two things side by side, and like so much code stripped out. And he's like, they're doing the same thing. It's just way less on this side. And and you can read it. You read it like a book. And I was like, okay, yes, I get this. This makes sense. Yeah.
I think certainly Laravel is to PHP developers what WordPress was to like the masses. You know, it kind of made it approachable. Not that PHP has ever been unapproachable, but when you put Laravel up, as you say, against CodeIgniter or against Symfony probably a little bit more with like the template stuff that they do now, where you can kind of bring in some level of boilerplate. Like, if you just look at them side by side, you can do a lot more with a lot less code of your own. Like, you don't have to kind of stitch it all together. And I think outside of the Laravel community, that's a little bit understated in just how much further you can get that. And we're seeing that, you know, in the last 6-12 months with kind of all of the people in the JavaScript ecosystem that have been coming back and looking at PHP and looking at Laravel and going, oh, like, we don't have to build auth every time and wire it up to some third-party service and bring in all of these components and do all of this stuff for every single app. No, Laravel just gives you the command to, you know, scaffold out a new application that has authentication and authorize that. Like, all of that stuff is just there. And then, you know, with the ecosystem around it, we've got, you know, Sparsy obviously is prolific. We've got all of this tooling and packages and bits and pieces that fill in the gaps that are common use cases, but are not things that belong necessarily in the context of the framework itself. It's a thriving community. It's like, it has to be a huge amount of pressure for the Laravel team to kind of constantly push the envelope. Like, for me, you know, Greg said it, Laravel 4 was the peak. The console stuff we had, it was the peak. And their ability to kind of see these things that exist that are like good enough for most people and then make them better, and then everyone going, oh yeah, what we had before was garbage. Like, how did we live with that before? You know, it's just having that. And now there's the expectation, I suppose, from our point of view, from the community at large. They're like, what's the next thing? Like, yeah, we're happy with what we got, but what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And for them to just constantly deliver year after year for, you know, 14 years now, whatever it's been that Laravel has been around, it's just like, surely the train has to stop at some point. But I'm enjoying the ride in the meantime.
My view on this now, I've been so surprised. I've been at that point of like, yeah, this is the new peak. It can't go any further. I'm kind of the opinion now that you ain't seen nothing yet. Like, I think it's just
especially as he adds members and sort of makes this. It's already a company, but it feels like he's making it a capital C company. You know, I think it's just going to explode. And I'm sure he's got more ideas that he doesn't have the bandwidth to implement. And so it's just gonna.
I see that in my own. I see that in my own world. Like, managing a team of people. It's not a huge team. There's 8 of us. I think we've been as big as 14 in the past. The you get a collection of smart people together on a single mission, which is a bit different to open source, because open source is kind of more like people scratching their own itches. Like it's a sort of loose collective of warring tribes in a lot of cases. But when you're in a company, when you're in a team with a shared mission, it's not a case of two developers make you go twice as fast. The combination of people's brains allow you to see things that you couldn't see before. And there's diminishing returns, but you get this huge acceleration in like, oh, but what about this? What if we did it this way? What if we did it this other way? I mean, I think Jess talked a little bit about, or talked to me at least, over a beer around the sort of prompts thing, getting back onto that, that it was an itch that she wanted scratched, and she'd wanted scratched for a long time because she'd seen some things in the JavaScript community that were frankly better than what we had, and pitched the idea to Taylor. Now, I'd have to imagine that Taylor was then challenging her to kind of like just take it a little bit further, or what if we just did it a little bit more like this? And you end up with something that's probably arguably better than any implementation, at least that I've seen, of a terminal tool like that. Like I can't think of anything that's even remotely close to it. And then you pick it up and go, well, yeah, let's just take it from great to crazy. Like let's just go right to the extremes of what it's doing. I am curious to think what
good word for it.
I'm curious to think what Jess actually thinks of your work. Like I can't imagine she thought that she was going to get Norton Commander and God knows what else.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I don't know. I mean, she seems to like it. I think probably for the first bit, like I don't know, maybe annoying to her. I'm not really sure. Because like, I would like tag her in the beginning and stuff because I was just excited. And then I was like, okay, let's maybe chill on that for a while. But she seems to like it. I don't know. We talk mostly through PRs, if at all. So, but she's so. I find submitting a PR to Jess like very intimidating because she's just like, so I think she's like next level smart. And so I get like a little nerve. I'm like, okay, let's prep this thing. Let's get it right, whatever. And then she's so like kind and she's like so patient. And like she's like really walked me through a couple of, we're working on getting a multi-line input into prompts. And it's arguably harder than any of the things that I have done on the terminal, just because it's so detail oriented, and it's you really have to make this thing that's just a string of characters look and feel and behave like what you're used to in the browser as a text area. It's so hard. And then like every time I'm like, okay, we did it. We really did it this time. Jess is like, cool, almost, except if you do basically this, it kind of breaks a little bit. And I'm like, totally got it. Okay, next, we're doing it. But she's so nice about it, and she's so kind, and I have a lot of respect for Jess.
I actually heard Jess when you said that. I think almost, except I think.
Yeah.
Michael and I have both been on the opposite side of that conversation a few times. But Jess is great. You're right. She's intimidatingly clever. Like she's very, very, very smart. A long time ago, I actually tried to employ her at the same time that Taylor was trying to employ her, so I was never going to win that fight. Even just like approaching her to sort of say, "Hey, would you like a job?" was like intimidating because she's just on a completely other level. But she's also like probably a lot of developers who are good, who know they're good, really radiate, "I'm really good." She doesn't. Like she's really.
I know. She's so low key about it.
Yeah.
It's because she's
I just did this insane.
In her own. Yeah.
I just did this crazy thing. Yeah. It's not a thing. It's just a thing. She's great.
Yeah, it's the other thing is that
we'll get her on soon.
People like that, especially when they're kind of working by themselves or their own little bubble. Before they start putting their work into the world, they don't. There's a lot of imposter syndrome in developers in general. It's like, like I'm good in my group of like 3 or working by myself, but it's like, how does that scale up? And you look at people like Adam Wathen, Taylor, Matt, all of these people out in the community. You look at them, you go, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm here, but you look and you're like, oh, you're at the bottom of that other ladder. It's like finishing, elementary school. You're at the top of the ladder, and then you go to, junior high or whatever it is, high school, and you're like, oh, I'm like back at the bottom of the ladder, And so it's this like reinforcing thing that yeah, I'm good in my own context. And it's not until, you get the nudge or you take the plunge, so either someone pushes you out the door, like I did, pushed her out onto that stage and told her, like, we need to hear what you have to say. Or, you just, like yourself, Joe, just put some stuff on Twitter and see what happens. Like, and it's not even in the context of like, I'm going to put this out and people are going to love it. It's just like, no, I'll just put this out into the world and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, and sort of on that note, I was sidelined forever. I was just observing and I was just watching people do things and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I have my imposter syndrome obviously still exists, but I had it for so long so bad because I have a BFA in acting. I don't have a computer science degree. I don't have a conventional background. I'm self-taught since high school. But I think that's a little bit when it comes down to it, my superpower, because like the grind in me is like very real. And I work hard to make sure that I'm like on the up and up and I'm trying to like stay knowledgeable. But I didn't share for a long time because of that. I was like, oh, I'm going to put something out there and people are going to be like, this guy's an idiot for sure. For sure. This guy's an idiot. And like, there's been like 2 cases of that, but otherwise it's been okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure me saying that that is the reason. And it's all in your head, and even if somebody does say that, it's who cares next, keep putting stuff out there.
Yeah. We see that even like from those upper echelons of people that like, even if you have a huge following and a huge audience and like lots of people respect you and say nice things about you, you kind of become like in the reverse, you become numb to all of that because that's all you see. And it's that one standout negative comment that can slap you down.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I am terrible. Like, never mind the 100 people that said this is great. It's that one person that they know the real me. Everyone's just being nice. And it's hard to overcome that, to, just do the thing. But we are very fortunate in the Laravel community, especially, to have a very supportive and understanding audience. And like, it's a shared audience. Everyone is following, what everyone is doing in our community. And it just is a genuine and really supportive group of people. Like even Greg felt that as a first time speaker last year. Everyone in that audience is there cheering you on, wanting you to succeed. The people that you look up to are there because, they've done the work, yes, but they were at one point the people cheering on the people before them. So, you are
Totally.
now making your way into that position where, you have been cheering people on and now there are people cheering you on. And that kind of, that cyclic environment of like people move up because, it just feeds itself and it just keeps going. And like, credit to Taylor, he leads that from the top. He reached out to you, Joe, with 100 followers doing like random experiments. I saw Jeffrey was like, hey, we would he tweeted like a month or 2 ago saying like we'd pay good money to have a course on this stuff on Laracast. Like, that stuff doesn't happen if you just too worried to put your stuff out there. You don't
if you're on the sideline. And even Ryan Chandler, who is another genius that's doing insane things all the time, he's like, yeah, people care about this. Like, people. And then I got out of a meeting at work and I saw, Jeffrey Wade commented and I was like, okay, well, okay, then people care about this, as much as, I guess, more than I anticipated, even in that regard. Yeah.
And not some far off thing. Like, it wasn't a week or, months later. It was like a few hours after the fact, after you had made that post, that Jeffrey was like, let's do it, kind of thing. So I hope that eventuates for you into something, because, being a Laracast creator is a good way to get in front of a whole bunch of Laravel people. You don't have to worry about doing any of the marketing. All of that stuff kind of gets done for free by virtue of the fact that you are a creator or a teacher, I think they're called on Laracast, of Laracast. So yeah, I hope that all works out.
It's definitely the gold star, gold standard of the community in terms of like, I've watched, I don't know how many episodes of Laracast at this point over the years, and I've been, at this point I should be a lifetime subscriber, but I still pay monthly because I'm just like, just keep doing it.
I refuse.
It's so cheap. It is so
probably
cheap.
would have probably would have saved a ton of money just going lifetime. I don't know, 3 years ago, but we're working on that. We'll see what comes of that.
Nice, exciting.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
Cool. Greg,
So-
do you have anything further?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just to kind of continue down the Ripples path a little bit. I think not long after Laracon AU, you started tweeting a little bit about, the first time speakers and stuff at Laracon AU, and I think a few of us decided to peer pressure you, I guess, into applying to go and give it a go yourself.
Yeah.
Where's that at? When are we going to see Laravel prompts on stage again?
Yeah, there were a couple people that were pretty persistent, saying like, you should talk about this. You should talk about what's going on here on a stage somewhere. And it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. But again, like, I was like, oh, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or whatever it is. But it's actually a great fusion of my background in acting and now my life in tech, my current life in tech. So it's in preparing, it feels very natural. But I submitted some talks to Laracon India, and a couple months ago, I woke up to an email and I was like, are they asking me? And I showed the email because I was like, they might just be being nice. I can't tell. And so I showed the email to my wife and I was like, is this a yes? Like, are they saying yes? And she's like, yeah, they were very explicitly saying yes. Like, why are you doubting yourself here? And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited. So I'm going to be talking about building these sorts of apps in the terminal, and it's mostly done at this point, and I'm really excited to get up there and do it. It feels very natural to present in this way, and I'm excited to do more of this if given the opportunity.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a I think Laracon India is probably like if I mean, for you having a background in acting, it's probably not so bad, but it's hard. It'd be hard mode for me to jump up like that. That thing is like 3 times bigger than any other Laracon in terms of attendees.
I mean, yeah, the room alone is like gargantuan. I've seen the pictures, and it's funny. I was sitting at Laracon US last year, and he got up to sort of promo it, and he was saying like, come to Laracon India. It looks, and they showed some footage, and I was like, that looks rad. That looks so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to go to that. Like, I don't think I can probably swing it, but like, whatever. And now I'm going to be like up on that stage doing it. And it's really, it's because I tweeted, which is it feels so silly to say that, but it's also like, that's the reason,
Yep. That's what it is. It's one little tweet starts this cascading, series of events that, unless you make that tweet, if you had gone, is anyone interested in this? And wrote the tweet out and just gone, nah, never mind. Like nothing would have come of that. Now,
yeah,
Taylor's noticed you, Jeffrey's noticed you. You're speaking at Laracon India. I'm sure that you've applied to Laracon US.
Have
Laracon Australia is coming up if you want to travel 30 hours to the other side of the world.
I'm already doing it, so might as well do it again, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, all of these opportunities only come your way when you put yourself out there, and like it feels repetitive. And I'm channeling my inner Aaron Francis every time I say it. But the whole point of this podcast is to show, like, to put it out there in the world that people need to understand this can happen to anyone at any time for any reason. And unless you send that tweet, write that blog post, publish that video, get on that stage, no one's going to know about it.
It's true. And if you had asked me a year ago, if any of the opportunities that I've gotten, and this is just the beginning, I'm not even like that far into this journey, but
yeah,
I would have never, ever called it. And Aaron Francis did call it. He called it like the third experiment in, the second experiment in. He said, this is your big thing. And I was like, I don't think so. I think I'm just fooling around here. And then I think off the Jeffrey tweet, he put it back to me and he said, I called this, just so you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, you dug back probably 8 months of tweets to find a reply to me to quote tweet it back to me. And I have to respect that, honestly.
Yeah. When Aaron talks, you listen. Like,
and
the guy is
not
more
just,
right than he's wrong.
For sure. It's not just that he said
Well,
it.
he wears the
8 months
shoes in the
ago.
house. I don't know if we're going to go that far with it. But he's a very smart guy, and I love you, Aaron. Don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just that he said it, it's that he remembered that he said it and he went back and dug it up so that he could throw it back at your feet and be like, here you go.
Yeah. Which is very kind of him, actually. It was very, very ultimately very nice of him.
Yeah.
Cool.
Perfect. All right. I think that's a reasonable place to start wrapping things up.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Joe? Or where can people who haven't found you yet find you?
Twitter is mostly the place. You can find me at Joe Tannenbaum on Twitter. And I haven't been doing a lot of experiments lately. I got a lot of other things going on in terms of life stuff and whatever. But I will get back to it because I do enjoy it. So once everything's settled down, I'll start fiddling again.
Excellent. We love to see it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Happy to have you.
Yeah, our pleasure, mate.
Excellent.
All right, cool. Well, you can find us at ripples.fm. We'll have some show notes, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Do we do show notes, Michael?
Yeah, we'll do show notes.
Michael does all these things. If anyone else would like to come on and talk about their story, you can reach out to Michael or myself on Twitter and we'll sort something out.
Yeah. Love to have you. Love to hear your story. Want to keep reinforcing this idea. It's not our idea. We don't own it, but I'm more than happy to perpetuate it. And I have seen, just on that, perpetuating it, I've seen the first concepts for the branding for Laracon AU this year. And let me tell you, we are going to continue the ripples this year. It will become a theme for AU 2024. So hope to get that out soon. More information will follow. November is the month. So start penciling that into your calendars if you're interested in attending. But I will say no more at this time. And until next episode, I have been Michael. I've been joined by Joe Tannenbaum and my co-host Greg Skirman, and we will see you next time around.